Throughout human history, men have met on battlefields and decided the fate of civilizations. Some battles lasted a day, others lasted years. All of them left scars on the world that never fully healed. These are the 10 deadliest battles in human history, ranked by total casualties. The numbers are almost impossible to comprehend, but behind every number was a person. Number 10. The Battle of Cannae, 216 BC, southern Italy. The Roman Republic sent its largest army ever assembled, 86,000 soldiers, to destroy the Carthaginian general Hannibal once and for all. What followed was the most perfectly executed battle in military history. Hannibal deliberately weakened his center to draw the Romans in, then curved his wings around them. 86,000 Romans found themselves completely surrounded, with no room to swing a sword. In a single afternoon, up to 70,000 Roman soldiers were killed. Historians estimate they died at a rate of 600 men every minute. Hannibal's soldiers collected the gold rings from dead Roman senators and knights, filling a bushel basket to send to Carthage as proof. Military academies still study Cannae today. It remains the textbook definition of a perfect encirclement. Number 9. Gettysburg. 3 days in July 1863 that decided the American Civil War. The Confederate Army of Northern Virginia under Robert E. Lee had invaded the North. The Union Army of the Potomac stood in its way on the hills and ridges outside a small Pennsylvania town. For 2 days, the fighting was fierce and inconclusive. On the third day, Lee ordered 12,500 Confederate soldiers to march across open ground toward fortified Union positions. It was one of the most catastrophic decisions in military history. They walked into a wall of fire. Over 3 days, 51,000 men were killed, wounded, or went missing. The Confederate Army never recovered. Lee retreated south and never invaded the North again. 4 months later, Abraham Lincoln stood on that same ground and delivered 272 words that defined what America was fighting for. Number 8. Verdun. The German commander Erich von Falkenhayn designed this battle with a horrifying purpose, not to capture ground, but to bleed France to death. He would attack a position so sacred to France that they would throw every man they had into defending it until there were no men left. Number 7. Kursk, the largest tank battle in history. Summer 1943. Germany assembled its most powerful armored force ever, nearly 3,000 tanks including the fearsome new Tiger and Panther models, to pinch off a massive Soviet salient near the city of Kursk. The Soviets had anticipated the attack. They built the deepest defensive system in history, 8 defensive belts stretching 300 kilometers deep. German tanks advanced into a killing ground. At Prokhorovka, nearly 1,000 tanks clashed in a single field. The sky turned black with smoke. The ground shook for miles. Germany lost over 500,000 men and thousands of irreplaceable tanks. They never launched another major offensive on the Eastern Front. From Kursk onward, Germany was retreating, all the way to Berlin. Number 6. The Siege of Leningrad. In September 1941, German and Finnish forces surrounded the Soviet Union's second-largest city and simply waited for it to starve. The siege lasted 872 days. In the first winter, the bread ration fell to 125 grams per day, one thin slice. People ate wallpaper paste, leather belts, sawdust mixed with flour. They burned furniture to survive the minus 30-degree cold, and still, they refused to surrender. Nearly 1.5 million people died, soldiers and civilians combined. More than died in the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki combined. More than Britain and America lost in the entire war. Leningrad held, but the cost was almost beyond comprehension. Number 5. The Battle of the Somme. We covered this briefly in our World War I video, but the scale demands its own place on this list. At 7:30 a.m. on July 1, 1916, 100,000 British soldiers went over the top. The German defenders had survived the week-long bombardment in deep concrete bunkers. They emerged, set up their machine guns, and the killing began. (57,470) British casualties on the first day. 19th to 240 killed in a single morning. The battle lasted 4.5 months. Over 1 million total casualties, for an advance of just a few kilometers of mud. Number 4. The Battle of Moscow. By October 1941, German forces had advanced further and faster than any army in history. Moscow, the heart of the Soviet Union, was within reach. German officers could see the city's spires through their binoculars. But the Soviet Union did not collapse. Stalin stayed in Moscow. Citizens dug anti-tank ditches with their bare hands. Factories were dismantled and shipped thousands of kilometers east to keep producing weapons. And then, the Russian winter arrived. German tanks froze solid. Engines wouldn't start. Men with no winter clothing began to die of cold. The Soviet counterattack pushed the Germans back. Moscow held. For the first time, the German war machine had been stopped and driven back. Approximately 1 million casualties on each side. The myth of German invincibility died in the Russian winter outside Moscow. Number 3. The Battle of Berlin. April 1945. The Soviet Union's final revenge for everything Germany had done to it. 2.5 million Soviet soldiers, 6,000 tanks, and 7,500 aircraft converged on a ruined city defended by old men and children. The fighting was savage, street by street, building by building, room by room. Soviet soldiers fought their way across an entire city that was determined to die rather than surrender. The Reichstag, Germany's parliament, became the final symbol. Soviet soldiers fought for it floor by floor. $1.3 million casualties. Berlin fell on May 2nd. Germany surrendered 6 days later. The most destructive war in human history was over in Europe. The city that had launched it lay in ruins. Number 2. Stalingrad, the single most important battle of the Second World War. Possibly the most brutal battle ever fought. Hitler wanted the city that bore Stalin's name. Stalin refused to give it. What followed consumed nearly 2 million lives. The ruins of Stalingrad became the most lethal battlefield in history. German soldiers called it Rattenkrieg, the War of Rats. Men fought for individual rooms, for staircases, for piles of rubble. A single apartment building was defended by Soviet soldiers for 60 days. The life expectancy of a new Soviet soldier at Stalingrad was less than 24 hours. In November 1942, the Soviets launched Operation Uranus. In 72 hours, they encircled the entire German Sixth Army, 300,000 men. Hitler refused to let them break out. They slowly starved and froze in the Russian winter. On February 2, 1943, the last German forces surrendered. Nearly 2 million total casualties. Germany never recovered. The war's outcome was decided in the rubble of one city on the Volga. Number 1. Not a single battle, but a campaign so vast that calling it a battle seems insufficient. The Eastern Front, the war between Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union. The largest, deadliest, most destructive military confrontation in the history of humanity. From June 1941 to May 1945, the Eastern Front consumed everything. Cities were annihilated. Entire populations were enslaved or murdered. The Germans deliberately starved 3 million Soviet prisoners of war to death. Behind the front lines, mobile killing units murdered Jews, Roma, and civilians by the hundreds of thousands. This was not just a military campaign. It was a war of extermination. The Soviet Union mobilized everything, every factory, every farm, every citizen, and slowly, at catastrophic cost, turned the tide. From the gates of Moscow to the ruins of Berlin, 4 years, every meter paid for in blood. Estimated casualties on the Eastern Front, military and civilian combined, range from 27 to 30 million people. The Soviet Union lost more people in this single campaign than any nation has ever lost in any war, ever. $30 million. Let that number sit for a moment. Every battle on this list has a number attached to it. But behind every number was a person. Someone who had a name, a family, a life they were living before the war found them. The scale of these battles is almost impossible to hold in your mind. But we should try, because remembering is the only way to honor what was lost. Thank you for watching Echoes of the Past. If this video stayed with you, subscribe. New history every Tuesday and Friday. And leave a comment. Which battle on this list shocked you the most? Or which one do you think should have ranked higher? The stories of the past deserve to be told. We'll keep telling them.